get started. Okay, I don't have my facilitator sheet, but that's fine. I think I got it. Good morning. Erace is the slogan of the group Erace, which was formed in the summer of 1993. We seek ways through person to show love and respect to all colors. Join us. I think I got it right. Okay. We would like to go around and introduce ourselves. Okay. Just say a little brief of who you are and where you're located. And I think that should be, and how long you've been coming to a meeting, and that should be sufficient. So we'll start in the order of who I see on my screen. Marva.
Good morning. My name is Marva, and I've been coming to Erace post Katrina, and I'm retired RN of 43 years, and I've learned something new every Saturday.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Marion.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Marion. I live in the Gentilly area of New Orleans, which is close to Lake Pontchartrain. I've been attending the Erace meetings since the organization was first formed in June of '93. I believe I went to the first meeting in June of 1993 at the Broadmoor Library. It's good to see everybody this morning on this nice, crisp, cold morning.
Okay, thank you, Marion. Bill? Unmute.
I'm Bill Ives, and I've been coming to Erace for 4 or 5 years. And like Marva, I learn something new every day, every time we meet. And I found it's incredibly valuable. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Michelle?
Hi, I'm Michelle, and I'm in Austin, Texas, introduced to Erace by my friend Louise, who's here on the call too. And I've been coming since about August of 2020. So look forward to the conversation. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. Phyllis?
Hi, good morning. I'm Phyllis. I've been coming to New Orleans since, to Erace since 2008 when I moved to New Orleans. And I'm looking forward to today's discussion. I think it will have bearing on the importance of our meetings.
Okay, thank you, Phyllis. Jenny?
Hi, I'm Jenny Fredericks. I'm in Central Austin. Cannot get out of my condo because there's ice and it's like, ugh, I feel like a prisoner here. And I want to thank Michelle. I knew about the organization, but I did not know about these meetings until Michelle told me maybe 5 or 6 months ago. So.
Oh, thank you for coming. Louise?
Hi, I'm Louise, been coming for over 2 decades in Austin, but once was in New Orleans. And I might have to suddenly jump off because we're expecting the plumber. So if I suddenly disappear, that's why.
Thank you, Louise. Jean?
I'm Jean Walker, and I live in Silver Spring, Maryland. And I've been coming, I guess, about 6 to 8 months. And I always enjoy the discussions and look forward to this very interesting topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Lynn with an L.
Good morning. I'm speaking to you from a picture of Paris, but I actually live in New Orleans and dream of Paris. I joined Erace in the summer of 2019, I think. Glad to see everyone this morning.
Thank you, Lynn. Nora?
Hi, I'm Nora. I'm in Austin as well. And I've been coming for, I don't know, 5, 6 months or so. And I enjoy it. Thanks.
Thank you, Nora. Richard? Unmute.
Morning, everybody. I'm Richard in Uptown New Orleans and been with Erace since the beginning.
Thank you. Cindy? Unmute. There you go.
Good morning. It was unmuted and I fixed it. Not. Good morning, everyone. I'm Cindy Morse, retired kindergarten teacher, Uptown New Orleans. I've been with Erace for about 5 years now, I guess. I think it's good. I'm interested in this article. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Pedro? Pedro? There you
Hey,
go.
sorry about that. Going a little slow today. Hey, it's chilly here in Icewood, Texas, just outside of Austin, and good to be back, and good morning to everybody.
Thank you. Cheryl?
Good morning, everyone. I'm here in New Orleans, Uptown. Been here for the last year or so, and then joined in 2006, I believe.
Hey, thank you. Glenn with the G.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Glenn Abdullah. I've been coming to Erace since 1994. Looking forward to this morning's meeting.
Thank you. Greer?
My name is Greer. I've been coming to Erace post Katrina. I think it was like 2007. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. And the last person is a phone number, 678-575-9516. Could you introduce yourself? Hello?
It's probably Quinn want to stay anonymous.
No.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry, I had to press *6. I think I came in muted. My name is Stephanie. Thank you for having me. I'm in Atlanta. I'm a member of the Atlanta Erace group, and Beatrice sends this information. So this is my first time joining the New Orleans group. I was having internet trouble, so I dialed in via phone today. Thanks for having me.
Okay, thank you. What Stephanie? Okay. Alisa? Unmute. You have to
Elisa,
unmute.
if you're in via phone, you have to hit *6 if it's via
Sorry.
phone.
There you go.
My name is Elisa Wolf. I was invited by Stephanie and through the Atlanta Erace group.
Okay, thank you for joining us
Na-
today.
Nancy, could I say something quick? I have a friend that's trying to get on, so she might be joining in just a couple minutes.
Okay, that's fine.
Thanks.
All right, Phyllis will be on the lookout for that. Where is Phyllis? Oh, there you are. Okay. A couple of guidelines. You raise 2 fingers to get on we speak in turn, okay? You get on the list and you raise 1 finger to get on the list. Okay, if you have a clarifying question of the speaker, we do not interrupt the speaker, but if you have a clarifying question of the speaker, which consists of, I didn't understand what you meant by, or could you further explain, then you raise 2 fingers and you can ask your clarifying question. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes. I will be keeping time on my phone and tracking how long you're speaking. We have no personal attacks. We do not use profanity. And at the end, like 15 minutes before, but there's a lot of people here, it might be more than 15 minutes. We do our last wrap up. Anyone who hasn't spoken can take their full 2 minutes. Everyone else, please keep your comments to approximately a minute. Some housekeeping rules. At the bottom, Please keep yourself muted unless you're speaking. There is a stop video. If you choose to stop the video, it looks like a little camera. And you can, blank your screen. There's also in the participant box, you can change your screen name if you wish to. You can go there and you click on your name and it says more, and then you can retype whatever name you wish to put in there. Okay, so my name is Nancy. If you see, and I've been coming to Erace since 2007, I think, June of 2007. I chose this topic, well, because it's current. And in reading there have since been, I had to come up with an article by Wednesday night. And I found these two articles, there were two of them, because they address different aspects of the situation of what would be said on The View. Now, I'm not home at 10 in the morning to be able to watch The View. So I had to kind of go back and do some research and a little investigating to find out exactly what happened. But I picked this for two reasons, or two topics for different reasons, because one addresses the definition of race in America. Whoopi's controversial comment was the Holocaust was not about race. Okay, so perhaps I'm not sure in Whoopi's mind, because Jewish people typically and German people, it's difficult to tell the difference between the two, unless you're blonde-haired, black. And in a lot of cases, there are dark-haired German people, brown hair, brown-eyed German people. So maybe that was her, what she was addressing, okay? But then also, how many people are not familiar in this day and age with what happened during the Holocaust, which is what the other article addressed. During, was it Katrina? I can't remember. It's been a long time ago. There is a Holocaust museum in Houston. And we had evacuated for a hurricane. I can't remember which one, but I remember Bethany was still in high school and she wanted to go see the Holocaust Museum. And so we did. We took her to see the Holocaust Museum. And I'm telling you, if you can go through that and come out with a dry eye, there is something wrong with you, really. It was horrific what happened in Nazi Germany. So that particular aspect of the article, where people don't really know what led up to it, or people are not familiar with it because it has been 80 plus years since it happened, I find distressing. So anyway, that's why I brought it. The list is open. Marion.
During the reading, I
Glenn.
found it very interesting and at the same time distressful that many people had not heard of the Holocaust. I was a senior in high school when I came across it in a reading. I think it was in Time magazine. And then some years later, the 60 Minutes TV show that came on CBS, it still does come on, did a documentary about it. And I was just amazed that a large percentage of people in the United States had not heard about it. Now, we weren't taught about it in school, as I said, but it was my freshman year or my senior year, I guess I'm repeating myself, that I did hear about it. And I was just astonished that millions of people were murdered in that way, and there were also children. So I found that especially horrifying. And being raised by a mother who I think overly protected us because of the times that we lived in, because I grew up during a Jim Crow, I was horrified that a group of people murdered another group of people, and there were children that were murdered. So I knew about it, and I was, as I said, to repeat myself, I'm just astonished that so many more people in this country were not aware of that. I think it was a heinous, hideous, horrible atrocity, and I just found it just amazing that so many people didn't know about it. It's shameful. There are really no words to describe that human beings could do this to each other. And I think that's when Whoopi got into trouble when she said it was man's inhumanity to man. That was an understatement, but it was true. So it was just a despicable, horrifying atrocity. And it's something that everybody all over the world needs to know about.
Phyllis. Okay, Marion, do you want to get back on the list?
No, I'll listen to everybody, maybe toward the end.
Glenn, you're next.
Well, you know, Whoopi was correct when she said man's inhumanity to man. And but she was incorrect when she said it wasn't racism had nothing to do with it. And because yes, they were pointed out because of their race. They were Jews. They would, in Germany, they would put a Star of David on their businesses. If they were if there were professors in universities, they were put out the universities. You know, it was a step-by-step program of what we call when you eliminate a race of people. I forgot what they call it. Not annihilation. What is it?
Genocide.
Genocide. Yeah. It's a step-by-step genocide, and it's but you can't know them by their futures. Their identity came with their names. Because Paul Newman, I didn't know Paul Newman was a Jew. I didn't know Barbara Stanwyck was a Jew. You know, I can't look at them and say, well, they look like Jews. You know, so it was racism, but you know, and it wasn't by how they look. It was by their identity through names. That's all I have to say right now.
Okay, thank you. Jean.
Yeah, I always thought of
Greer.
Jews as a cultural group. And when I looked up Wikipedia for race, it's any group, social groups, as well as, and of course we know that by the way people look is not scientifically sound. The Germans, my understanding, have memorials to the Holocaust as a reminder so that it never happens again. Because it's not only the genocide, it's also the experiments that they conducted on people without any kind of, well, we know about that one, without any kind of anesthesia. But I thought this was a very interesting article, and I never thought of them as a race. You know, and there are a lot of Black people that you wouldn't know were African American because they're the same color as I am. And there are no, features that they see. So, it's not the way anybody looks, it's who they associate with. Anyway, so it's a great article. I mean, great. Yeah, I'm rambling.
It's okay. Thank you, Jean. Next we have Phyllis, then Greer, then Bill, then Lynn. Pedro? Anyone else?
Alyssa.
And Alyssa. Okay. All right, Phyllis.
So I think it's sort of understandable, given Whoopi's cultural context in the United States, that she would see that as the German Jewish situation as not being about race, but it's a case where the Germans really created a fake racial identity for a group of people that they wanted to scapegoat. And yes, they claimed there were facial features and whatever, but you could probably find a German who had centuries in Germany who had those same features. I think it's unfortunate that the View chose to, who's talking in the background? That the Jews chose, that the View chose to give her 2 weeks off instead of having an ongoing conversation where they could bring in people to make it a deeper conversation about what was said, and somebody could teach about the Holocaust. They could have on the man who wrote Mouse, which is somewhere in Alabama is trying to ban it, possibly did ban it, which is a graphic novel about the Holocaust using mice to represent Jewish people and cats to represent the Nazis. We have to question why there seems to be an impulse in this country to stop teaching things that might make white people uncomfortable. Although I don't think your average American is going to be personally guilty about the Holocaust like they get about slavery. And I will get back on the list.
Okay, thank you, Phyllis. Next we have Greer.
Okay.
Hey, Cheryl has a clarifying question.
Oh, okay, I'll hold up.
Okay.
Nancy, would you also put me on the list, please? I want to say to you, Phyllis, I want to ask you, because you said something for you to clarify, that the Germans made, or the Nazis made the Jewish people into a race. I do believe that in New Orleans history, I have learned that there was persecution here, and that was way before the Nazis were created in Germany, just here inside our own city. So I guess that's the clarification. Do you believe that Jewish people were made into a race by the Nazis, or didn't that exist before? Could you clarify on that?
I don't know if persecution of the Jews anywhere prior to Nazism, if the term race was used. It was just because of the feelings about the Jewish religion and lies that were created about them, which makes no sense for Christians to oppose the group of people that Jesus came from. It makes no sense. So yeah, I think people find groups that they want to target, and they find ways to target them.
All right, thank you. Greer.
Okay. I don't have a problem with what Whoopi said, because she's right. It was about man's inhumanity to man. But if you look at some of what Hitler credited for how he got to this point, he used how America treated Blacks. He even gave credit to that, and created a racial based, rather than it be a cultural or religious reason why you don't like these people. He chose to put race on them to differentiate them from other people. And we have to even go further with that, because this was a European versus European thing. Because it wasn't just Jews in Germany, it was Hungary, it was Poland, it was Italy. So when you look at it, maybe she shouldn't have said what she said, but what she said, I don't think was a lie. Because race is a social construct that was created by man. Because I say the sky is pink and I'm looking at a blue sky, that doesn't make it so. I agree with Phyllis. There could have been more talking. There could have been, because a lot of people go, okay, slavery wasn't, the Civil War wasn't about slavery. You could say it was about slavery. You could say it was about economy. So, it's just a different view. I even asked a friend of mine who was Jewish, we talk about stuff like this. And I asked her, and I was like, well, what did you think about what we say? And I'm not saying one person is a voice of the world. She said, when you look at Jewish people, some people consider it religion, some people consider it culture, some people consider it race. And I asked her, I said, well, do you see anything that Whoopi said was wrong? And she told me no. And my thing is, when we talk, we agree that we don't have to agree on everything. That's why we talk about the stuff we talk about. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Greer. Okay, next we have Bill, Lynn, Pedro, Elisa, Phyllis, and Jenny. Anyone else want to be on the list? Cheryl. Okay.
Well, persecution of the Jews existed long before Hitler. The Spanish Inquisition was an example where Jews either had to convert to Christianity or leave the country, or they were killed. So it's been historically for a long time and still rampant in this country. The idiot Marjorie Taylor Greene blames the wildfires on secret Jewish space lasers. And so it's all going on. But I was interested in this. I read a little more about it, and there was a lot of people said in America, I'm quoting a comment in a thread, religion may be ethnicity. No, race is defined and contextualized in the USA. No, Jews are not a race, Judaism a religion. And in the US, they were identified and classified as white, and whiteness is a political identity. However, in the context of Germany, as several people have already said, and now I'm quoting Whoopi herself, who apologized and realized that she said, this is a quote from Whoopi, I said the Holocaust wasn't about race and was instead about man's inhumanity to man. And then she added, but it is indeed about race because Hitler and the Nazis considered Jews to be an inferior race. So in the context of Hitler, Jews were made into a race. But in the US, while there is a lot of anti-Semitism and blowing up of synagogues and things like that, they're considered more of an ethnic group.
You want to get back on the?
Yeah, I'll get back on the list.
Okay. Glenn, I see your hand. So next we have Lynn, Pedro, Elisa, Phyllis, Jenny, Cheryl, Glenn, and
me.
Bill. Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, Lynn.
First, I want to say that I agree with Phyllis. Whoopi did not deserve to be kicked off the television program for 2 weeks. She wasn't disparaging Jews. She wasn't minimizing what had happened to them. She was discussing terms like racism. And I read an article in the Jewish Times out of Israel that said that the Anti-Defamation League, which is the organization in the United States that keeps its eye on trends in the United States, because they cannot afford to have anti-Semitism take over a country after what happened in World War II. And they had originally defined racism as the belief that a particular race is superior or inferior to another, that a person's social and moral traits are predetermined by his or her inborn biological characteristics. Racism is a hatred of one person by another, or the belief that another person is less than human because of skin color, language, customs, place of birth, or any factor that supposedly reveals the basic nature of that person. Then it later said that racism is the marginalization and or oppression of people of color based on a socially constructed racial hierarchy that privileges white people. And now, after the Goldberg scandal, the ADL has changed its definition again and said racism occurs when individuals or institutions show more favorable evaluation or treatment of an individual group based on race or ethnicity. So we have a problem with language and definitions and concepts in our country. And I probably shouldn't try to say this falls within the category or that falls within the category, but hate, we should hate all manifestations of bias and discrimination while recognizing that certain groups have had much, much more of that bad treatment.
Others. Okay, thank you, Lynn. Next we have Pedro.
Yeah, so the article indicates a couple things. The most emphasize the importance of remembering history to ensure never again, right? And so this really strikes me because I've done a number of shows since 2014 on Ukraine, and the hate that's been generated in our country against Russians, or not against Russians, but against Russia, but mainly in the context of the Ukraine, with the coup in 2014 came the installation in the cabinet of Ukraine, 6 or 7 really high positions of neo-Nazi individuals. It was the first government since World War II that had a neo-Nazi government. This is very well documented. I've documented. I won't take the time now since I only have 2 minutes. But more than that, right now, I interviewed a guy that's in Donetsk, which is right on that eastern border there. And he was talking about validating that claim, and that they had neo-Nazi waving flags and all of these things on the front in the Ukrainian army, that the major fighting part of the Ukraine army, 20% or so, are of far-right groups of such as the Right Sector and Svoboda Party and neo-Nazi swastikas and all of this stuff. 27 million Russians died in World War II in the Nazi Eastern Front. 80% of the Nazi deaths in their army came on the Eastern Front by Russia. And the government right now demonized the eastern part of Ukraine, the Russian-speaking eastern part, as bugs, as cockroaches, and they're horrified by this right-wing neo-Nazism. And we don't get a word of that in our media, nor have we had any discussion about that in our own country, that we brought this government to power. In fact, it was the first Black president of our country that brought this neo-Nazi government and these atrocities that have been going on. You can look up Odessa as a major atrocity.
Pedro, do you want to get back on the list?
No.
No? Okay, sorry, 2 minutes is up. Thank you. Alisa.
Hi.
Hi.
So I sort of understand both parts of Whoopi's statement. Right now, racism is very prevalent in people of color. It represents their fight, their activism. But I also, if I take race back, I think that's where she missed the mark, is we have a human race, and any group that's targeted for anything is targeted by their race, by their religion, by who they are, what they stand for. And I think it's where we get racist, the term, because we are condemning a group to be inferior, or to be not capable, or to be less than, or to not be equal to. And I think that's where the Holocaust, the Jews were a race. They were a race that were identified as being less than, inferior, and wanted extinguished, wanted gone. So I think we have a very current racism that is prevalent and out there and protesting and wonderful. And then I think we have the race that what happened back at the Holocaust. And I just think she might need to to reference both. That without saying one wasn't a race, she could say that racism is prevalent in people of color. But however, there was racism back then, and targeted to the Holocaust. I had a daughter in high school, and they taught. Ooh, wow, that was quick.
Yeah.
Am I done?
Okay, do you want to get back on the list?
No, that's okay.
No? Okay, thank you. Okay, we have Phyllis, Jenny, Cheryl, Glenn, Bill, Greer. Anyone else? And Beatrice. Okay. All right, Phyllis.
So I think that people can make a race out of anybody. Put it that way. They can determine that it's kind of called othering, that another group of people is different, and they can spin it so that they can create that group as a threat to society. It's going on all the time. The way people talk about the trans bathroom alleged situation, which is not a situation, that, you know, little girls and women are going to be in danger. It's rubbish. I've said before, I was in Belfast, Northern Ireland, hanging out with I had Catholic and Protestant friends there, hanging out with a Catholic friend who walked me into a Protestant neighborhood. They all swear they can tell the difference between a Catholic and a Protestant by looking at them. No, nobody in that Protestant neighborhood knew that my friend was Catholic. And I could show you a picture of a group of Catholic and Protestant teenagers, and you would not be able to tell which one was which, from Northern Ireland. They're all very pale white people, but in their minds, there's a racial difference. And again, it's like two groups of white people claiming they are different races. I get really frustrated with the when people say never again, because genocides are still happening. The way the European Zionists colonized Palestine and are now treating Palestinians the way Nazis treated the Jews of Europe it's just an example of how it's not never again, it continues and continues and continues. Thanks.
It morphs. Okay, thank you, Phyllis. Next we have Jenny.
Yeah, in terms of anti-Semitism before the Holocaust, my dad came from Ohio. He was Jewish. Last name was Friedman. And when he came to Texas, he changed it to Fredericks. What I don't know, and I've been sitting here thinking, it's like, oh, I wish I'd asked Dad, was did he know about it before he came? He was in his early 20s? Or did he experience it and that led him to change it? And I'll have to ask my brother because I really don't know. But it was, obviously alive and well enough for him to change his name. And only in Texas. I don't know if you guys have heard of South Lake School District. It was very much in the news around not wanting to teach about racism and not wanting to, have their poor little white kids be made uncomfortable. Well, an administrator there, I think I read superintendent or of curriculum or head of curriculum, said if they teach the Holocaust, they have to offer an alternative view. Hello. I don't even know what that means. So I don't think that it happened. I don't think it passed, but this was a high up person. So anyway, that's about good old Texas.
Thank you. Glenn has a clarifying question.
Yes.
Did your father teach you any Jewish customs?
He didn't. I think his parents were pretty much non-religious Jews. So, and mother was Southern Baptist. They were both agnostic. So he really did not. And I never even, it wasn't an issue or it wasn't talked about, I guess. So it's a good question though.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Cheryl.
I really am appreciative of everyone's comments here. It's good. I think the slip up is good for all of us because it does bring this focus up and everybody lots of people heard about this. And so it really served us all a lot that she did what she did. Although I know that the Nazis considered themselves a superior race. So right off the bat, that was just a big part of it. I probably learned more in California in history, graduating in 1975. I probably learned more about Nazi Germany than I learned about the Civil War and Black history. So I just think that's interesting. I know that New Orleans, I appreciate what Phyllis said, New Orleans, when it was, it turned itself into a completely Catholic city and it marched all the Jewish people. I can't say Jews. I always have to pause and say Jewish people. I was raised by my mother not to say that, and it was not supposed to be done. That she considered it a racial slur. But they marched the Jewish people out of the city at night and wouldn't let them back in and closed the city on them. But I guess that was more because of religious practices. But somehow in my mind, I have this this fact is that at a certain point, Italians, Jewish people, and Irish people were turned into whites as far as race goes, so that it could be more clarifying to keep Blacks as a working group of people. I do question why, after she apologized so well, that she would stay out of work for 2 weeks. Does that mean that she doesn't get paid? Did they give her a financial hit because of that? And that makes me question racism as far as that group of people, that they did that to her.
Absolutely. Thank you, Cheryl. Clarifying from Bill. Bill, unmute.
What I'm in the process of doing that. When did that occur in New Orleans historically?
I learned that fact from Leon Waters, who does a tourism guide downtown.
Lynn.
And I think that it was, I believe that it was in the late 17 or early 1800s, but I would have to fact check that one for you, Bill. I just know that it was presented to me as the fact by a historian here.
Yeah, well, in that case, because you said they marched them out of the city and wouldn't let them back in, that
he said
implies that the city was a fortified city.
It was still a citadel then. So if you know the years on that better than I do, but they've turned the city completely, everyone that was enslaved had to convert to Catholicism, or they couldn't be your slave as well. So the entire city converted to Catholicism at that time.
That's the Spanish Inquisition.
Okay.
Anyway,
All right. Moving on, we have Glenn next.
Yeah, it's hard for you. It's hard to identify who is a Jew. I always heard they had, African Jews, but they had in Ethiopia they had a terrible drought, and Israel sent planes over there to pick up the Ethiopian Jews and bring them back to Israel. And you see them over there. Watch the news. You see them. There'll be soldiers. You see them in the soldiers. But they're not just limited to Europe. They got Greeks that are Jews. There are Lebanese that are Jews. There are Jews everywhere. And one thing about them claiming the racism thing, but they're guilty of it. The Jews they brought from Ethiopia were African, dark skinned, and they persecute them over in Israel. They are discriminated against. When you see some of the things happening to them in Israel, you think of some of the things happening to African Americans in America. But if you're not going to stand up, that should be eliminated out of your being. So you shouldn't be out there crying. People are persecuting you, and you are persecuting yourself.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. We have Bill, Greer, Beatrice, and Lynn. Bill?
yes. I think Whoopi should be commended because she realized she made a mistake and she acknowledged it and she clarified it. I think it would have been much better served for she to stay on The View and take part in the discussion. Because anyway, I was married to a Jewish woman for 16 years. And so I got to know Jewish culture a lot. We went to Amsterdam. We went to the Anne Frank house. And it was like going to the lynching museum in some ways. And I had seen the movie before, and the movie was clearly filmed in the actual Anne Frank house. And that really brought it home. We also, in Vienna, we went to a synagogue, the only remaining synagogue in Vienna, but it was, if you walk down the street, you wouldn't know it was a synagogue. It was just a plain door. And we knocked on the door. We were interviewed by security guards wanting to know why we were there, because there were still concerns about synagogues being destroyed in Vienna. And we got in, we went through the door, and it opened up to this beautiful synagogue with an arched, a dome ceiling that was painted blue with stars on it. But I don't know about never again. It's misused in a lot of ways. And I agree with Phyllis that the government of Israel has been acting like the government of South Africa are the Nazis. And but to criticize the government of Israel is not being anti-Semitic. There are many Jews who don't like what the government is doing. That's a separate issue. I think I heard the buzzer.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you, Dale. We have Greer, Beatrice, Lynn, and then Glenn. And Cindy. Greer.
All right. In Mein Kampf, even Hitler said that America is the one state that has made progress toward primarily racial conception. So his idea was to take what America did in terms of what's making its citizenship, in terms of being a person of Germany. And I do understand that Jews have been persecuted for religion, for culture, and race. But Hitler didn't go the culture and the religion. He chose to use racism. And I understand that. But I had I'm picking up a book, read some of it. It was called My Time as a Hitler Youth. And this was about a Jewish boy who somehow wound up being adopted by a Jewish general. Found him on a trail. He wound up getting separated from his parents. Once separated from him, he was in a Russian they made him like a little mascot. Then they took him to the Hitler Youth School. I forgot the name of the school, where all it was ending. They were put on the front line to hide that the fact that he was circumcised. Nobody could tell. They had the Jews where I see what Whoopi's saying. You cannot differentiate. I remember watching one movie. It was about Easter Island and how
Greer, you have a bad connection. And your time is up.
You do? Can I get back?
Yeah.
Back on?
You
Can I get back on?
Yeah.
Can I get back on?
Yes. Yes, you can. Okay, Beatrice.
Yeah, I agree that Whoopi's suspension was longer than it needed to be. I think sometimes we forget that people on The View are entertainers, and sometimes, although the questions that they are given to ask are, are deep and thought driven, the questions sometimes don't come from their own thinking, and then the comments sometimes stray kind of far. So I just think she was overly punished. However, when the Anti-Defamation League person spoke, he drew a parallel between people's acceptance of Israel as a state and not being anti-Semitic. And I think that there's a lot that Israel does. Amnesty International came out with a report, and people, Bill and others have responded about this, that the apartheid, and Jimmy Carter wrote a book about it a long time ago, about Palestinians being treated as people were in South Africa under that government. I mean, people are being evicted from their homes. They are building territories, or building on occupied land. There's a lot going on over there that people need to be aware of. And so to try to equate accepting Israel and it's the right of return and all of that goes with it, the history of that, and if you don't do that, you're being anti-Semitic. I think that's wrong. And so I do think that
that we need to think more about that. I worked with a woman when I worked at Chevy Chase Elementary School in DC who had been in a concentration camp, and she had the numerals on her arm. That's a powerful thing to see a person who has experienced that, painful and powerful. But we don't want to compare people's pain. I mean, I'm rereading some stuff in 1619 about the Middle Passage and what it was like to be, and how many of us died going across. So there's enough pain to go around, and I think to name it and to deal with what we bring forward as a result of it is what we need to be doing. And I think that's a way that we need to kind of look at.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all right, at this time, on the list, we have Lynn, Glenn, Cindy, Greer, Pedro, and Phyllis. At that point, the list is closed, and because we're probably going to run over, okay? So anything else will have to be addressed in the wrap up. Pedro, did you have a clarifying question? No? Okay, all right. So next we have Lynn.
I am also a New Orleans tour guide. It's my retirement job, and a fun job it is too. And I did some research on Jews in New Orleans. And in my research, I found that, of course, the Black Code, Article number 1 said that New Orleans or Louisiana will be a Catholic colony, and there will be no Jewish people allowed. But the French never kicked any Jews out. They needed every able-bodied human being they could get to build this colony in this godforsaken land with yellow fever and snakes and everything. The Spanish did evict one person. His name was Monsanto, and he was the richest merchant in town. And the sources I read reflected that, well, they really weren't so worried about the religion. They didn't want the competition, because he had connections throughout the Caribbean, and he was a big competitor to Spanish merchants. So they didn't kick all the Jews out. In fact, if you look at the Herman Grimmer house, Mr. Herman was Jewish, and there are plenty of Jews who married French people, French women in town, and were accepted.
Okay.
The Holocaust can teach us quite a bit. And one thing that I think it should teach us now is that the Germans, after 20 or 30 years of pretending it didn't happen, have been facing it. They paid reparations from the beginning, but they have been facing it. They teach it. They explain how it happened. And they acknowledge that their country did great wrongs. And that is something that we should learn instead of outlying so-called critical race theory in school, because it might hurt somebody's feelings. That is one big lesson that the Holocaust can also teach us.
Okay, thank you, Lynn, and right on time. Glenn?
Well, I'll be very short. I don't see Whoopi getting 2 weeks off as no big punishment. That's very light. She probably enjoying those 2 weeks to get away from the view, get her some vacation time. You know, and the media is very sensitive. They got sponsors that they got to be concerned about. They got the audience they have to be worried about. You know, guys, a coach just got fired because of some text he sent. He got fired from his job for making racial statements. So she is fortunate she didn't get fired, because it all depends on how sensitive people took what she said, and how that's going to the bottom line, how that's going to affect the bottom line, because she's there to make money for the bottom line. She's there to make money. And if you do something in the media, they got a clause where they can kick you out if you cause damage to their product. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Cindy?
Hello again. The whole thing with definition of race and culture, how do you sort of sort it out? And I think in our country, we're very informal about it because there's not this is cultural and this is racial and this is religious. And it's all very much tied together, which is as it should be, because I think it really is. So how somebody can say, well, you can't do that because it's the wrong culture, whatever. But in terms of holidays and different cultural traditions, I think it would be wonderful if we could learn from each other. I was lucky to teach at a school that had families from all over the world because of being right by Tulane. So when we come up on the holidays, we looked at the traditions of India, China, Japan, the United States, and lots of variations of Christianity. Like we had a Swedish family one year, and they brought in, this mom brought in the little thing they wore with the candles and taught the children some of the songs. Of course, here I'm sending kindergartners home speaking Swedish. It was amazing. But they learned a bit, I think, about the diversity of the world and that most everybody celebrates the winter solstice, the end of the year, the beginning of the new. Why not look at it and learn from it? It doesn't have to be a negative. I think we could all benefit from that. I certainly would enjoy knowing more about different traditions in different cultures. So I think we could change our way of looking at all of this. Enough said.
Thank you, Cindy. Greer. I don't know where y'all couldn't hear me on that at what part. Do you remember?
About
halfway through.
Yeah.
Yes, where you failed to be heard on the views of why they couldn't, why the student couldn't use the bathroom.
No, that wasn't me.
Oh.
No. I picked up a book and I breezed through it. It's about a young kid who wound up becoming part of the Hitler Youth, and he was Jewish. He happened to help some German soldiers translate. He winds up getting adopted by a German officer, and he goes to Hitler Youth School. Now he's around all these kids who's supposed to know, and all these adults who's supposed to know what a Jew looks like, and he's in the hotbed of it. His only problem was he had to not be seen going to the bathroom because of being circumcised. But this is the thing I'm saying. This is why I say Whoopi didn't say anything wrong. And with the punishment, I mean, it goes with the job. But my thing is, if you want people to speak freely, and again, she didn't say anything against Jews. The power dynamics are here in terms of when somebody says something you don't like, and if you have the financial power to alter their lifestyles, then you can't have a conversation like that. It's like, you shut up. Think about when the slave narratives were being written down. The people who were going to talk to the slaves, the ex-slaves at the time, were white people. So do you think those ex-slaves could freely talk and give you the truth? In their minds, slavery could happen again. So I'm gonna tell you what you want to hear versus the truth. They would have done better getting people of color to actually talk to these people and get the true essence of what slavery is. When power dynamics are used, nothing changes. All you get is silence. Now she's going to be on The View. Again, she did not say anything disparaging. And the way she interacts is going to be forever changed. That's it. Thank you. Pedro.
Yeah, so just to belabor my earlier point, I just wanted to bring that back up. I'm gonna have to leave early. I have some people working downstairs at my house, so I apologize for charging out early, but the concept never again, right? Yet today, our media and our government ignores completely the neo-fascism which we rejuvenated by the coup that we promoted in 2014 in the Ukraine. It just befuddles me. How can this not be mentioned at all by the media or the government or by The View? You know, this is an important lesson of oppression that we ignore. And it reminds me of, you know, the chickens will come home to roost comment that Malcolm made so famous. And it happened in Charlottesville, that FBI testimony found that members of the Charlottesville neo-Nazi skinheads that killed them people in Charlottesville went to the Ukraine post 2014 and got indoctrinated at some level. The whole far right neo-Nazi resurgence in that part of the world cannot be ignored, and it flies in the face of this concept never again, and that we should ask, why is our media not covering that at all? Thank you for a very provocative discussion. I'll be leaving in just a few minutes, and really appreciate y'all listening and all of your comments that I've learned from.
Thank you, Pedro. Be safe. Okay, and lastly, we have Phyllis.
I just wanted to make the comment on, based on what Beatrice said, and I know that this is how it's portrayed in the media, that the Palestinians in certain parts of Jerusalem are being evicted. They are not, that's not the right word. Their houses are being stolen from them. They are not back, you know, behind on their rent. They are being forcibly removed. Some cases, their houses are destroyed. Some cases, their houses are taken over by Jewish settler families. There's a video of a Jewish man with a Brooklyn accent telling a Palestinian woman, if he doesn't take her house, somebody else will. That's been going on there since 1948, if not before. To comment on whoever talked about how the Germans deal very openly about, I think Lynn, about the Holocaust, and try to learn to not repeat it again. Years ago, I was with a group of people that included some young people from Germany. They were about my age. And one of our group, not a German, had to go to the emergency room. When they came back, they still had on their hospital bracelet. And the Germans were very, very upset. It was their first knowledge of going to a hospital here and getting a bracelet with your name and your date of birth and a number on it. And they were just horrified. And I don't know how they manage keeping track of patients in German hospitals, but that wasn't the way. And it was because of the Holocaust. It was because you don't mark people with identifying information in any way. So this was a great conversation, Nancy.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Now we are going to move on to the wrap up. It's 11:11. We're going to move on to the wrap up. And those people who haven't had a chance to speak, get their full 2 minutes. And that consists of Nora, Louise, Marva, Michelle, Leonetta, and Richard. So we'll start with Nora. And she can take her full 2 minutes.
Okay. So racism is such a sticky, awful issue, and race is a social construct, and yet there's all this infighting over it. And I sometimes think that somebody is just kind of drooling over, oh, we got them fighting again. And distracting all of us from other issues such as unemployment and healthcare and wages. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Nora. And I forgot to mention Ann Stephanie, so I knew I was going to leave somebody off. Stephanie, you also get a full 2 minutes to speak. And if you don't wish to say anything, you can say I'll pass. Okay, that's fine. All right. So, Louise.
Just to reiterate just now what Nora said, they cause a distraction with all of this fuss over words and stuff. And to be honest, I find it very tedious when people are just dissecting words and not, wasting time on that. And also I want to address the never again thing, which a couple of people have talked about. Palestine, of course, Ukraine. And in Palestine, Phyllis, they owned those houses. It wasn't, it was just like, you out. And then, the horrors that go on there are just, I don't know, they make me very, very sad. I've got a very soft spot for what goes on there. And as far as teaching, the critical race theory is so damaging to our society. We need to teach all of this stuff, and yet it's banning. It's ridiculous. Yeah, good discussion. Thanks.
Thank you, Louise. Next, Marva.
I took the opportunity to listen to all of your views. You spoke. I have learned from all of your views, and I agree that Whoopi did not say anything wrong. It's in her wording. I also agree that the View should have taken the opportunity to open a discussion about racism. It was surely missed opportunity of epic proportion. Thanks for a great discussion. I thank you, Nancy, for a great topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Michelle.
Yeah, I was just listening this whole time today. I was just going to share a little bit of information I came across on Twitter. I think it was yesterday. I follow a woman, Crystal Marie Fleming, who is an academic, a Black academic, I should say, at Stony Brook University. And she posted a thread on her Twitter timeline that I thought was kind of timely. But the one takeaway I took from it was one of her tweets was one of the best educational resources I've come across that explains how modern racism was built on earlier forms of European bigotry, specifically anti-Semitism, is George Frederickson's Racism, A Short History. So I'm going to post that in the chat for anybody who is unfamiliar with it and might want to take a look at it. But it was something I was new to me and I hadn't heard of that particular historian. So it was a good conversation to listen in on to today. So thank you for bringing the topic. Hope everybody has a good rest of their weekend.
Thank you, Michelle. Next we have Leonetta.
Good morning, everybody. Nancy, you had this is a wonderful subject. I do agree that what Whoopi said was not wrong. And there's a lot of people in the United States believe the same thing that she did, that Jews is not a race, it's a religion. And it was nice that she brought the person the next day from the Anti-Defamation League to and her apology. I agree with Glenn. She probably enjoyed these 2 weeks off, but I hope she didn't lose any pay because she had a contract. I'm hoping she didn't. I also agree. I wanted to let you know that on the Black Social Workers site, we're doing Black History, and there is a social worker that did interview slaves after slavery. I didn't know that, and I think she also did some therapy. I always was one of the ones that said that this generational anger that Blacks have is due to what happened in slavery, and that they never got therapy for it. Well, some of them did. From this particular, I don't remember her name, but if you go on our website, you'll see it is there for Black History. Also, I don't know why the media is not publicizing this, and I know it leads to some of the attacks that are being done to Jewish people in the United States, but the way that they're being treating, the way that the Palestinians are being treated, and the Black Jews in Israel are being treated. Some of that is part of the treatment, anti-racism that they're facing here in the United States. Not all of it, but some of it is. And I think that, you know, everybody has their problems, you know, because there's, I don't know, I don't even know what else I want to say. It's my time up, Nancy, because
Yes.
I lost track.
That's good. Okay, thank you, Leonetta.
Okay.
Okay, next we have Richard.
Yes, I think if Whoopi had left it at the point that where she was saying that what happened in Nazi Germany was a egregious example of man's inhumanity to man, we would not be having this discussion. I think that's something we can all agree on. It's when she went, unfortunately, a little bit further, and as we all often do, there's many a slip between the brain and the lip, something like that. She said that you know, this was all about you white people fighting other, you know, white people fighting other white people, and it, in many people's mind, this attempted to minimize what really was going on in Nazi Germany, and I think that kind of came out in the discussion we had today. So she. You know, if she had left it that this was man's inhumanity to man, we wouldn't be having this discussion. But she wasn't thinking through what she said after that. And in that respect, I'd like to follow up on also what we've been talking about with what's going on in Israel today. As Phyllis and others have said, it's much more than eviction that's going on with the Palestinians. It's oppression. And as I've quoted earlier, Rabbi Michael Lerner with Tikan, who's on the front line of bringing to light all, you know, the serious oppression of Palestinians, said this, and it relates directly to what I said that Whoopi went too far in saying. He said, "Herein lies the liberatory potential multiculturalism. To reject the fantasized," and I emphasize the word fantasized, concept of whiteness, and instead recognize the complex stories of each cultural tradition and privileging one group over another, not privileging one group over another, but insisting on hearing and reclaiming everyone's stories. This is not how we are functioning today. And in that context, Jews must regard with an equally determined insistence that we are not white, and that those who claim we are exclude our history and literature from the newly emerging multicultural canon we are of our oppressors. So I agree with, Whoopi identifies as Jewish, and that's, to me, it's the heart of it. Judaism is an identity, not a race. And in that respect, I'd like to say that we are all people of color, and as our own bumper sticker says, all colors with love and respect. White is a color. We are all people of color.
All right, thank you, Richard. Okay, and lastly, of this group, we have Stephanie.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for having me today. And Elisa was my friend that joined. She apologized for dropping. She's my next door neighbor just as of about 1.5 years ago. And I've been blessed to get to know a lot of the Jewish traditions through her family and what they celebrate, and she invites me in. She was on our group and committee that helped us to get it approved to be able to stand a Black Lives Matter sign outside of our home. So I've gotten to know her really well. And when she ran out of time and then had to drop, I texted her and I said, what were you going to say about Maddie? Because that's her daughter. And she said, Maddie's high school, this is within the past 5 years, taught about the Holocaust, and it became a joke. And people started walking around saying, Hail Hitler, and laughing about it. And she believes that the hatred against the Jewish community is deep and still very broad and present in recent years. And, gosh, I just went through a whole nother thing like, gosh, how did I not know this? I've had her as a close friend for a year and a half. How did I not know how real that she felt the hatred was against her community? She doesn't believe in the canceling of the culture, neither do I. So she believes that Whoopi should have been allowed to stay, but to really focus on the education with what she said, because I do think that there was minimization, and I think it was a miss that racism is not something that pertains also to what the Jewish community has gone through. So I just think I wish there was a history class that focused on the racism against groups of people in the world, the Jews, Black America, and everything that's happened in our world, because I think there's a huge need to build empathy in our children through really embracing and learning about history rather than minimizing it with, the words that we use and the labels that we give. I think when I first started protesting with Black Lives Matter, I saw a sign that said, if you don't see color, that's a problem. And so I learned we do want to see color. We do want to recognize Jewish people. We do want to recognize Black people, and we want to empathize with the reality of what they've experienced. And thank you for having me. I'll pass.
Oh, thank you. You did really good. I mean, it's just about 2 minutes. Great.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to the participants that did speak earlier, and you have 1 minute with your final thoughts. So we will start with Marion.
This was very timely and relevant, and it brought me back 60 years. I know I'm telling my age. My mother was a housekeeper for a Jewish family in uptown New Orleans. The lady of the house would come to our house sometimes to visit, and I had the opportunity to go over to their house. So this, as I said, this was about 60 years ago. And she told my mother a story in my presence about how she and her husband had gone to a hotel for dinner, and they were in a private dining room. And she said someone mistakenly opened the dining room door and said, "Ooh, yuck, Jews." So my mother said, she said, "How did they know you were Jews?" She said, "I don't know, but that was the response, ooh, yuck, Jews." So I found this topic to be very relevant, very timely. I too have a problem dealing with how the Jewish population is treating the Palestinian population. I don't understand that. And I know if I said this in certain company, maybe I'd be judged as anti-Semitic, which I'm not. But if you've been treated a certain way, that golden rule comes to mind: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So I really don't understand that. Okay. And we know the Palestinians have been around here, been in the world, been in existence for eons. I know I ran over. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, everybody, for your comments.
All right, Marion, thank you. Bill?
In Boston, there's a Holocaust memorial, which consists of 6 columns, and you can walk through them, and there are quotes on it. And there's a quote from General Eisenhower, Dwight Eisenhower. It said, "I've heard about these concentration camps, and I want to go see them in person. So years from now, when someone denies their existence, I can say, I was there and I saw it." And I also want to quote the Boston Globe a few days ago. Quote, "The Republican Party on Friday officially declared the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol and events that led to it, quote, legitimate political discourse." So the whitewashing continues. But
Thank you.
it was powerful to see the words of Eisenhower and others at the Boston thing.
Hey, Phyllis.
This was a really, I don't know what the word is, deep conversation, inspiring, lots of, takes on from different angles of it. And I just don't think The View wants deep conversations. They want sound bites that can show up on the news or on whatever social media when people are fighting. It's been years since I've been able to watch it, but I grew tired of it a long time ago, probably around the days of Elizabeth Hasselbeck or whatever her name was. So, God bless Whoopi for sticking it out all these years. And hopefully when she comes back, they won't just gloss over everything. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Phyllis. Next we have Lynn.
Another thing, picking up Bill's statement that the time of the Holocaust and the rise of Nazism can teach us is how much damage a big lie can do and how it operates. And that's what's going on now in our country. Trump did not win the election. The people were not protesting and exercising free speech. And the Republicans are not trying to make voting fair and easily accessible. Watch out for the big lie. Thank you, everyone, for your comments.
Thank you, Lynn. Next we have Cindy.
So this was interesting. I've always been one that wants to go explore differences and learn about the way people live. And so that people can deny all of this is shocking to me, but I keep seeing it over and over. Why can't we accept that there are many, many ways to live a life and they're all equally acceptable, even valuable, if they bring satisfaction and pleasure without harming anyone else? So what's the commotion? Anyway, it was interesting to hear the different views today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Cindy. Jenny.
Yeah, this was a really rich discussion, and I appreciate always how opposing views can be respectfully listened to. And thank you, whoever said about the Holocaust Museum in Houston. That's home. That's where I grew up. Thanks. I didn't even know that. Hello. And I'm looking forward to asking my brother what he knew, because he's 7 years older than I am, and Dad would have been very, very open and talkative. So I'm hoping he's got more in his head than I have in mine. So thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Next we have Cheryl.
I can just read that I got ready to read to tell all of you, actually, because I have to go really soon. I just really thank everybody for the discussion, and thank you, Nancy, for bringing the article up. I really enjoyed what Marva just said, and also Leonetta. If the show had have kept Whoopi on after she apologized and made a good discussion around this, what a great thing to do for Black History Month. That would have been wonderful. And maybe at the end of it, they will take some of that. And I hope that I get a lot of different and new information about life because it being Black History Month. I also believe that Glenn was really correct in stating they have sponsors. And it reminded me of how the city council here, when we asked them to stop supporting Palestine, we all had to come down from that because people wanted to use the tractors that came from Israel. And so money ruled and people were not taken care of. Pedro really awakened me as well. And now I have some studying to do about the Ukraine, because here we are supporting them again. And I believe that my country did as little as it could for as long as it could until it thought that it might get in trouble because of the Nazi Jews coming to take over life and liberty here from anyone that didn't agree with them. And it's the only reason I believe that we stepped in. Thank you for a wonderful conversation. Have a great week, and everybody keep your toes warm.
Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, Beatrice.
Yeah, good conversation. Words are important. Misused, evicted. I have seen how the people's houses have been torn down. That was bad. I was an assistant principal in Montgomery County Public Schools for a good while. And one of the things I did was make sure that each month we highlighted culture and contributions of every ethnic group, because the school system was like the United Nations anyway. Cass teaches us, the book, that the ritualizing of pain is important. The stumble stones in that the German people have put up with the names of the people that were destroyed by the Holocaust, they're important for us to remember those names. And I think if we celebrate in a way that the pain is ritualized, that we don't use plantations to have wedding receptions, like they don't do birthday parties and crematoria. We really have to have an idea of what pain is and how we remember it and how we teach it. And that's the sad part about this whole race and kinship issue. Good conversation. Glad to be with you. Take care. Be aware.
Okay, thank you, Beatrice. Jean.
It was a wonderful conversation, very stimulating, very thought-provoking. I will remember this and think about many of the issues that were raised. And thank you, Nancy. It was very interesting articles. The racism that was exhibited there, I think, is giving, putting Whoopi on a 2-week leave. And there is the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. I'm sure everybody knows about that. But thank you very much, and everybody have a wonderful week.
You too. Thank you, Jean. Glenn.
Yeah, we can't put everybody into one bag. This is the Jewish people. They're this way or they that way. My father had an excellent relationship with Jewish people. They helped him, and I was with him one time when that was demonstrated, and so it was mutual respect between those two. And but I had another good point to make. What was that? Brain freeze. I'm gonna deal with another thing. I can't think of it.
Okay. Are you done?
I'm a hacker. Can't think of nothing.
Okay. Well, thank you for the comments that you did make. Okay.
Oh yeah, I
And-
got it. I got
Oh,
it.
you got it. Okay.
Yeah. I also, even though the Palestinians and the Jewish people are having arguments in Israel, in the United States, when Jewish graveyards were defaced and the tombstones overturned, Muslims donated at least $100,000 to repair that damage. And when something happened to the Jews in New Orleans, we all went down there to their synagogue in support of them. So it's it's not just one way of thinking about it. That's all I got to say.
Okay. Thank you. And
Glenn, was that Mr. Tellis?
That's correct.
Thank you. And lastly, we have Greer.
This was a great discussion. I felt that the author of this article was very angry when he wrote it. He called Whoopi ignorant when I think she's really knowledgeable. And I think she knows what happens in with the Holocaust. So that wasn't even up for contention with this article. I think we were more caught up with semantics in terms of you heard what she said, but did you listen to what she said? That's it.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. We're well over our time. I thank you all for coming. I thought we had a great discussion. And I guess at this point, Phyllis, you can stop the recording. And if there are any announcements.
You don't want to do a final thing yourself?
We're way over time now.
Okay.
Thanks, Nancy, for a great article.
Thank you. You're welcome.